Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times. Hey, I'm Tech. Welcome to Off the Cuff. Today, I wanted to talk about a very interesting subject: scissors. Now, if you're like me or like a normal person, you probably don't think about scissors very much unless you need to cut something and have to go find them. But they're actually a little bit more interesting than you might think. Scissors have actually been around for quite a long time. The first ones appear in Mesopotamia between 3 and 4,000 years ago, in Egypt around 1500 BCE, which makes them really old with respect to tools that we still use today. The modern scissor design, more or less, with this central pivot and the handles and blades, showed up more or less around the 1600s and hasn't really changed much. That's because their central function is so intuitive and so simple. The idea of having two blades cutting against each other allows you to cut from behind something and have the item separate. You don't have to draw a blade or towards yourself. You can cut away from yourself, as well as giving yourself the added shear force of the countercutting blades. It's really simple and genius. When you look at the actual designs, what you have here are a set of levers. You can picture one blade as being fixed when you move it and the other as moving. So we have a lever with a pivot, and as I apply a force on this side, that force is transferred down the lever to the contact point between the blade, and that contact point moves from the base all the way to the tip as you close the pair of scissors to allow you to get a nice long straight cut. At the same time, it means you actually get less cutting force when you reach down to the tip of the scissors than you do when you're right at the very top of the scissors, which is why things like hydraulic cutters or snips tend to have very, very short blades and long handles to give you a much bigger mechanical advantage. But when you're just cutting paper, this design is usually fine. We don't think of this design as really being ripe for innovation unless you're left-handed. The first really big changes to this design was the creation of left-handed scissors. And if you think really all that left-handed scissors are is they've changed the molding to fit the left hand, think again. One of the biggest things with left-handed scissors is that the blades, where this connector is, are different. So we have, for us right-handed people, the blade that is on the left, the loop is on the top. For left-handed scissors, the blade that is on the right, the loop is on the top. And what this lets you do is sight down the scissor that's underneath, or the paper or whatever it is you're cutting in between, and actually see the blade that's cutting against it. When you have ambidextrous scissors that are still in this right-handed configuration, you hold them with your left hand and you're trying to cut, and the whole width of the blade is in between you and what you're cutting. You can't actually see the line you're cutting on. So left-handed scissors, with their reversed structure, allow left-handed people to hold the scissors with their left hand and look down at it. That's why they complain about right-handed scissors so much. Not as much as the comfort and ergonomics, but that can be a pain in the arse too. Scissors have a lot of other derivatives in our modern culture. Everything from gardening shears to pruning hooks to kitchen scissors to medical scissors. All of these variations on a design that either optimize for the pure cutting strength, so like very, very sharp or at a specific angle like you'll find for hair scissors, or maybe against a flat surface like you'll get with a pruning hook, or you'll get with actually kitchen scissors. Sometimes they have like built-in knives with cutting boards in them. They're really cool for cutting vegetables. Innovations like that, or with things like snips that are evolutions of the scissors, or shears that really rely more on the shear force. So you're using your gardening shears, your grass shears, or your tin snips. They rely more on physically the shear force against a more brittle material to make the slice, rather than cutting into it and separating the material, which is what the sharpness does. General purpose scissors like these ones use a combination of both. Fabric scissors are a lot more sharp, whereas these have a good balance between the shear force and the actual sharpness of the blades. But there are other areas where scissors have had great innovations in recent years. Ergonomic handles, like the ones that are contoured to your hands, are nice, but I would consider them a very minor innovation. How do you improve upon such a simple and useful design? I won't say it's easy, but I will say that all three major scissor manufacturers, which are Scotch, Fiskars, and Westcott, all use very similar techniques. The first one, here's my pair of scissors that I bought when I was looking for a good pair of scissors because my ones that I had been using broke. This plastic handle had shattered. Here is what a good pair of scissors looks like for a general purpose. First thing to notice is that their blades are not steel. With the other scissors, you usually have like stamped rolled steel like you'd get with flatware or other knives where they cut it out of a sheet of steel and then sharpen the edge. These are titanium blades. The advantage of titanium is that you need much less of a bend to keep them together because they hold their shape better. They stay sharper longer, so when you're cutting paper and generally like cutting craft things, they're really they have an advantage over other scissors that you don't have to replace them as often. Second, you'll notice that the handles or that the blades are black. That's because they're covered in a non-stick coating. If you've ever cut like very sticky things, so glue, anything with glue on it or tape, you can find that sometimes right inside the scissors you get this buildup of gunk that kind of makes the scissors stick together. If you've ever taught kindergarten or been in a kindergarten classroom, you'll know what I'm talking about because they're covered in this glue. These don't get that. You can cut really, really strong adhesives and they don't stick, just like a non-stick frying pan, only you're not cooking on this. So this lets you keep the scissors in a good condition for a lot longer than you otherwise would. Third, you'll notice that rather than being like these, so here's a pair of value Westcott scissors. So these are the 99-cent varieties. These are $10 Scotch variety of scissors. You'll notice that these value ones have a single, probably injection molded plastic handle that is mounted over the metal, and it's kind of ergonomic and it works really well. These use a similar injection molded plastic, but then it's bonded with this composite rubber. The composite rubber, the composite rubber is very soft on the hands. It allows you to cut for a long period of time without having the fatigue that you'd normally get. With these scissors, before I broke them, I had done a lot of cutting on some cardboards and some Bristol boards and even paper, and after a while it really hurts your hand. You get these lines and marks and just pain everywhere where the scissor is because you're applying a lot of repetitive force to the same part of your hand. This helps eliminate it. Now, both the Scotch and the Westcott brands also have this little contact patch here. The Fiskars don't. But this is to rest your index finger on. It's a little innovation that makes such a big world of difference, because when you're grabbing like this, it's these three fingers and your thumb that are taking a lot of the work, but this one is also pressing against the scissors. And so to help prevent it from being fatigued, they have this additional little contact patch. Some scissors, these ones don't have an angled handle as well, so that the blade is the only thing that sticks down below the cutting line. That way, you're actually able to disturb a material you're cutting less. So let's say you have a piece of fabric or a large piece of paper and you want to cut in a straight line across it. These are going to lift it by a significant amount. Like that's a pretty big chunk that it's going to lift it off of whatever surfaces it is, and it's going to disturb it. But if you have these angled ones, you can get under the cutting, whatever material you're cutting, and you don't disturb it very much as you cut across whatever it is you're cutting. I said that a lot, whatever it is you're cutting. But it's a really, really useful innovation. Fifthly, these scissors have a screw at their pivot instead of a rivet. Now, a riveted pair of scissors, over time, that rivet is going to fatigue, and the base of the scissors is going to come apart a little bit, and you can't tighten it back up. Well, what happens is when that happens, you have to start pushing the blades together. You add this rotation to your cutting motion, which adds additional fatigue to your wrist and pain to your hand and fingers, because you're also adding this other counter push with your hand. Now, also, I mentioned left-handed scissors. That's one of the things that happens with left-handed scissors is if you cut with these left-handed, that push, that natural motion of the hand is actually going to push the blades apart, which is not a good thing because that reduces their cutting power. But with a pivot that you can tighten, as they get looser, you can tighten it back together and make sure that they're always, as the metal fatigues and things wear out over time, you're able to keep them in better working condition. It's like being able to update it or tinker with it, to keep it in good working condition rather than just throwing it out when it wears out. These scissors also have partially flattened tips, most of them do now, so that you don't stab yourself, which I generally appreciate because I hate stabbing myself. Overall, when you think about scissors, you probably don't think about a very simple but useful machine that has had in recent years some really incredible innovations, tiny things that can make a world of difference. Now, it might seem ridiculous to spend $10 on a pair of scissors, but if they're going to last me a few years longer, or I'm going to not complain about pain when I use them, or I'm not even going to ever have to think about like, oh, they're too gunked up and I have to think about going and shopping for them again. Like that to me are the little innovations that can turn a simple everyday piece of technology into something that I not only want for myself, I want to talk about because it's in its own way revolutionary. So you tell me, what have you found where in your life or in things that you've bought that where little innovations have made really big changes in the user experience or in how you've interacted with them? Let me know in the comments below. Ask me questions in the comments below or on Reddit. And till next time, I'm Tech Adams saying keep thinking and thanks for watching, and tune into Tech Laboratories every week for Off the Cuff and once a month for my regular videos.